Alright, episode 7 of Samurai Jack. We're all the way up here now. And I gotta say, it's really unfortunate that we only have 10 episodes, because I would really like 3 more episodes of this stuff. But this episode was definitely geared more toward Jack's mental journey, and kind of trying to restore his hope, and trying to restore his worthiness as a samurai warrior, to wield the sword, the only thing that can hurt Aku. And it's interesting because there's definitely a connection here that I thought with Thor, and Thor's worthiness to wield his hammer. Here it's Samurai Jack's worthiness to kind of wield his sword. And because he's lost a lot of his hope, gained a little bit more of it in the last episode when Ashi saved him. But what he needs to do now here is kind of restore the rest of his hope and kind of destroy that demon that's kind of been haunting him for however long. So it was really cool with that symbolism there when he goes to meditate and go into that new world. And we'll get to that in a second. I want to start with the introduction to this episode, which I think was really nice. They started the episode off with the story of how he lost his sword. He's going to the last time portal that we know of. And so this is kind of his last hope. And this is kind of where he lost all of that hope. And it's in no small part due to those little goats or whatever who were following him and kind of led him to that portal. And I thought it was really cool how Jack sees the portal and immediately dashes and jumps into it, because he has learned from his past mistakes of kind of taking his time, standing there saying, finally I've reached it, and then by that time it's too late to go through the portal. So this time he immediately jumps in the portal. Unfortunately, Aku is able to reach in there and snatch him out of it. I didn't think that was really possible, but I guess it is. So further showing off how much of a monster Aku is and how much of a freaking bad thing he is, he transforms, or he makes these things, giant beasts appear, which Jack has to fight. And Jack is like so angry that he finally reached the final portal and jumped into it, and Aku just took it away and destroyed the portal. Now he has to fight these stupid beasts, so he just like hacks and slashes them in his anger. And it turns out that it's just those little baby goats that Aku transformed them into the giant monsters. So now on top of all that frustration that Jack already had of not getting into the portal, he has the further realization that he just killed these little babies. And that obviously really helps him to push him off of the edge a little bit. And that's when he loses his sword, because he lets go of his sword and he's like, oh my god, what have I done? And then his sword falls down the hill, or falls down the hole, but he doesn't get to it in time, and he loses the sword. I don't know, I guess it goes into another dimension, or disappears somehow, because at that point, he had little hope already of getting to the last portal, which, I mean, who knows? Aku could have been lying about that being the last portal. There could be other portals out there, I'm thinking. Or there could not be, and Jack is just stuck in the future and just has to deal with that instead of going back in time and stopping all of it from happening to begin with. So this introduction was really awesome, showing kind of Jack's downfall, although I would have liked it a little bit if he were a little bit disgruntled to begin with, because he just seems like the same old Jack that we always saw, even though he had such little hope left. And killing those babies and the destruction of that portal really pushed him over the edge. It would have been nice that if he was already at that edge at that point, but he just seemed like the same old Jack. So back into the future, Aku and Jack are looking for the sword, and of course they can't find it. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe it just went into another realm where Odin, Vishnu, and Ra have been keeping it safe until Jack kind of gets his spirit back, because the sword can only be used for good. So I'm thinking maybe they took it back because of his mental state, it's questionable whether or not he would use it for good or not. But now, so they're not able to find the sword. So Jack goes over and sits down and meditates and kind of, I don't know, transports his spirit to another realm or something. But it's really cool, his transition over to this other world or spiritual realm or whatever you want to call it. The sound design in this, as always, as the previous 4 seasons, is really integral in creating the ambience of these worlds. The music was awesome, and the sound design is, as always, spot on, and I really loved it. So Jack is sitting there meditating, and an army starts marching toward the mountain, and Ashi is the only person there to guard him. And now we're seeing the totality of how badass Ashi is. She just freaking plows through all of those soldiers seemingly pretty easily, and then she breaking the spears and throwing them back into their heads, smashing their teeth in. Cinematically super brutal. It was really interesting how they decided to intercut that with Jack's serene tea making and the peaceful mind that he was trying to get into. So they cut with to to the peaceful tea making, and then immediately cut to the brutal, like bloody freaking blood fest that is the battle between Ashi and this army. Now this might be one of the top fights in the whole series, I think. Freaking awesome. And she seemed to have no trouble with them. Like, I don't remember a point in the fight where any of them actually like got a hit or even a scratch on her. And obviously she's a little bit tired. She fought like thousands of soldiers, but that's about it. It doesn't seem like they got a hit out on her. So she's a fucking badass for sure. So Jack finally serves the tea, and this actually is connecting with Dragon Ball Super a little bit, in which you make your tea, and how good the tea is like a reflection of how good or pure your spirit is. It's a very interesting concept, and that old guy is like, this tea is terrible. And Jack's like, what do you mean it's terrible? And it's terrible because Jack is still carrying that dark side of him out. And it's funny because for a second, I thought that Mad Jack was gonna come out and they were gonna have like a mind battle with each other again. I think that would have been cool. This episode was paced, like the pacing was really fast. Like, Jack was in the meditative state, his hope was gone, it was restored a little bit in the last episode, but then here, the negative Jack is like yelling at the old man, and then yelling at Jack, and then suddenly Jack is like, no, I can see now, and just like opens his eyes and flashes the Mad Jack away. I just think that was a little bit quickly paced. Maybe they could have used like another episode or something like that to kind of flesh out his arc back to restoring his hope a little bit more. I think that would have been nice. So I do think it was a little bit fast because he seemed like the tea was tasting really bad and like his spirit was like suffering, and then suddenly Jack's like, I can see now, you're gone, I'm pure, and all my hope is restored. But then finally, this has never happened before that I remember, Odin, Vishnu, and Ra appear to Jack and say, fine, now you are worthy, now you have been restored, your spirit has been restored, you are now worthy to reclaim your sword. And they restore his robes and restore his hair, give him a little bit of a shave, and last but not least, give him his sword back. So I thought that was really interesting. They finally appeared to Jack himself. I'm not sure if he's even seen them before. We know that his father has seen them when he first got the sword, but that was definitely really cool to see. I did think it was a little bit rushed. It felt a little bit rushed. So we go back to Ashi defending Jack while he's in his meditative state, and the witch mother like snuck up the mountain while Ashi was fighting the army, and like Ashi uses the bird thing to finally fly up there. And adding to her badassness, she freaking catches the arrow in midair right as it's about to hit Jack, and then has a really cool fight with the witch mother, which again, I do think that it would have been a little bit longer. It felt slightly anticlimactic. The fight itself was awesome, and I think Ashi only got hit like once. So I guess she's more skilled than the Witch Mother at one-on-one combat, which is no big deal. But of course, then the Witch Mother makes the fatal error of going after Jack, thinking that Ashi was down for the count. And so Ashi threw one of the Witch Mother's own arrows like right through her gut. That was a really cool death. But maybe she's not even dead. Maybe she's just wounded, fell down the cliff a little bit, and maybe she'll come back a little bit later, who knows. Kind of hoping she is, because it felt a little anticlimactic to me with the daughter finally standing up to the mother. So then Jack comes out of his meditative state and sees Ashi there, and he's like worried, but she's fine. And then they decide to go after Aku now. They've got his sword, now they're going after Aku. This episode was really awesome. I liked the contrasting elements of the tea making with the brutal army versus Ashi battle. But I do think a little bit slower pacing with Jack's arc to redemption or restoring his samurai spirit and his hope. I do think that could have helped to be just a little bit longer or a little bit more time spent on that. And I do think that Ashi's and the Witch Mother's confrontation was a little bit anticlimactic. It was an awesome fight and it was really cool. But I am hoping that the mother is still alive so that they can have one final confrontation, full of emotion and just having more impact. And also I'm wondering if Aku is lying about that being the last portal. I'm thinking maybe there's one or two more, but I'm also thinking that maybe they're going to be stuck in the future. And also another theory that I have is for the fate of these characters. I'm thinking, what if Samurai Jack is going to have to sacrifice himself and Ashi is going to have to kind of take up the mantle of being the samurai warrior wielding the sword, kind of like a passing of the torch kind of thing. I'm not sure if I would like that, but I think it would be really interesting and depends on how they would handle it. but I think that would be very unsatisfying for definitely a lot of fans. Or they can do the reverse of that with Ashi sacrificing herself so that Jack can make like the final blow against Aku, or maybe find a time portal and get back in time and Ashi sacrifices herself so that he can do that. So obviously very excited for the next 3 episodes. Let me know what you guys thought of the episode in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and definitely share the video with your friends. Got more Samurai Jack, Dragon Ball stuff coming up in the future, so I'll see you later.